Okay, so the final step is to actually code our upload method. And this is going to use some things that you guys are not familiar with because I haven't shown you them up to this point. Um, so before we get started, I'm just going to open up the objects area. This is where we'll actually be able to see changes after we refresh. Now, you may remember from our S3, or sorry, from our AWS that text right here. So there are these two key items right here, the ID and then the password basically that's used for our application. Now, hopefully you didn't put those in your Git repo and push them because otherwise you have to change it. You'll get an email from Amazon telling you that they're basically invalidating it because you pushed it to GitHub, and that's not good. Again, this lab will not be pushed to GitHub. You're just going to zip it and submit it to me. Now, we're going to be using the first part of this in a very similar fashion as every other profile page that we've made before, right? Every other photo upload, we're going to have the S3 image, but we're going to have another thing that we're going to define in this section as well, which is going to be the bucket name. Now, you can get the bucket name by just going right here in your S3. It's whatever this is right here, okay? So you can just copy and paste that. And paste it in right here. This vendor folder that we dropped in here that has all of our AWS methods and everything like that. What we're doing is we're going to automatically load all the resources that we need, and then we're just going to start using some of these classes that Amazon has defined for us. This S3 client, for example, and an AWS exception. This is going to be for some error checking. So we've done some error checking from the user side. However, we're going to assume that everything's fine because all they're doing is uploading a picture. There's not going to be any real room for like nefarious kind of SQL injection type stuff. Now, there's going to be some symbols that you guys are not used to. This colon right here, it's basically accessing a method within this S3 client class. This is a class. It's lit up in green. It may be slightly different for you guys. And then within here, we're going to use an array. We're basically just going to define an array object. And in there is going to be all these key value pairs. So you'll see this slightly different notation from what you're used to. But maybe if you remember from any of those logic classes, like those discrete mathematics classes, implies kind of situation. That's basically what's going on right here, or equivalence, whatever it is. Anyway, this is going to be your key, and then this is the value associated with this key that you're going to pass. So what's happening is this factory method is basically Amazon's really easy way for you to interact with S3. All this information is going to be packaged up, and within the credentials, you're going to have another array of key value pairs. You could write this a little bit differently. This is just the way that I did it for this video, so I'm going to keep going through it. There's other examples online that are very similar and use this kind of setup, so it's what I ended up using as well. And then this is the key and the this is the ID that you have from before for your app, which again is right here. And then the secret key, the password for the application goes right there. And then this put object, what is going to happen is we're going to basically take our S3 client, which is this object right here, this interaction with S3, with the Amazon S3 service, and we're going to use a put object method. This is basically a reference. This is basically equivalent to a dot operator, more or less, and we're calling the put object method. And what's going to happen is we're going to be placing our photo in this bucket, which we defined up here. And we're going to be giving it this unique ID. We're going to be putting it in a folder which does not currently exist. If I pull this up, notice that there is no current folder in here. However, because I'm using put instead of post, it won't fail as long as everything else is defined appropriately. And then this is just your generic giving you a different ID or name for the file so that everything is unique and it's based on timestamps. The source file, this is going to be the temp file name, which we have right here from when you actually do the upload using that file button. And then the access control is basically what is allowed to happen with this object that we're putting in. What is allowed to happen with this photo? We're going to allow the public to read it, to see it, but not to write or modify it. All right, and assuming that everything else is defined correctly and that this result works, what's going to happen is we're going to print off a success message, and it's going to get the URL, the link to that object. And if it doesn't work, we're going to go through this catch block where the connection and everything is just going to die. It's going to kill the program. Okay, and it's going to print off this message. So this is defined in the, S3 exception class. So if I just serve this guy up, oops. If I serve this guy up, I'm going to just choose a photo. I'm going to upload it. And boom, if I go to this URL right here, it will go ahead and download that photo, which is pretty neat. You can kind of see the utility of some of this stuff. I'm going to just go here. When I refresh the page, it may take a minute or so for it to show up. Notice that that folder was not there. This is a folder icon. And now it is. And there is my image. You can see the size. You can see when it was uploaded, stuff like that. If you don't remember what your S3 region is, if you didn't use the default, go back to the buckets. Sorry, it was right there. It's this little bit on the end here. Okay. So yeah, that should be pretty much everything for this one. Okay. You guys can just scroll back through this. I'm not going to do a ton of this coding because I've already kind of went through line by line what each of these is, and you guys can just go backwards or forwards. The main section that you guys will probably want me to show you is this try section right here, and I'll just close out of that. And there's the catch. And I'll just go up so you guys can see this section right here at the very top. Now this vendor section is right here. There's no two dots or anything because it's in the same directory. The vendor folder is in the same directory as my S3 helper, which is this file that I'm doing everything in. And then, yeah, everything else is pretty standard. And then, yeah. The one thing you may need to modify, if I didn't already make that modification for you, is in this form action on the S3 front end. Make sure that it is just this file. It's all within the same directory. I don't have any subdirectories other than the vendor one, which I downloaded using Composer. So just make sure that that path is correct.